Thank you all for joining us at Digital today. This session is an introduction to personalised video marketing, and please welcome your host, Dave Holloway from the Leeds. Thank you very much.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you very much to Rory for the introduction. And thank you all very much for being here today. Now, I am going to introduce you all to a remarkable form of business development, proved to be nearly 20 times more effective than cold calling at generating more leads. And the best part is, it doesn't require you to sell your soul in the process. Now, that process is personalised video marketing. And we will look at the type of people that it can benefit, the best process to follow, and the unprecedented results that it can deliver. But before we go into that, those of you who don't know me might well be asking what makes me qualified to lead this session. And that is a very good question. And the honest truth is that if you'd have asked me 4 years ago whether I would be leading a talk based primarily on effective outbound sales, I would have absolutely laughed my head off. That's because for more than 10 years running my own business, outbound sales was my number one headache. To explain, if I had to describe my sales technique, I would probably say that I am the typical technician turned business owner. Now, I've always been confident talking to potential customers about subjects I know well, and I've been fortunate to win a few relatively sizable contracts in my time. But I've never held a pure sales or business development role for any organisation. Well, actually, that is a small lie, because I did have a Saturday job at Clark's when I was a lad, so clearly I'm a pro. But I've never had a proper sales job. Now, I am responsible for business development within my business, but it's just one of the many hats that I have to wear. Now, let's just say that I was not born to be in sales. I'm not obsessed by targets and closing deals. I hate interrupting people. I hate making them feel like a number, and I hate pressurizing them. And why? Because every single time someone else does those things to me, I hate it. And every time it happens, which is a lot when you are running a business, I lose a little more faith in the traditional ways of contacting a potential customer. Still, I am a businessman, and being successful in any business requires the ability to attract customers, which is why I believe that when you have created something of genuine value that can help other businesses to succeed, then you are performing a service by bringing it to the attention of the people who can benefit. Now, continually going above and beyond for customers is the best way to build a business. Sometimes situations and circumstances dictate proceedings. Sometimes necessity demands that you are proactive in business development, instead of merely sitting back and waiting for the right people to hunt you down. But how is it possible to accomplish that without resorting to all the things that I, like so many other business professionals, hate about outbound sales? Now, for more than a decade running my own business, I struggled with that puzzle. And not just any business, a marketing agency no less. Not only was I routinely experiencing my own business development headaches, but I had the daily exposure to the attempts of clients who were trying to wrestle with their own. Over the years, I tried everything my time, budget, and morals would allow. Cold calling, email marketing, direct mail, advertising, exhibitions, PR, all played various roles in my ever-evolving business development playbook, and all ended up costing me a lot in both time and money, with little reward to show for it. Social media offered me a glimmer of hope, but it's so saturated with ill-conceived generic sales tactics that it was proving increasingly difficult to cut through the noise. And in truth, the primary reason that I'm here talking to you all today is primarily through desperation. Now, I was desperate to find a way to attract quality B2B leads for my business. Desperate to fight against the one-size-fits-all spam that plagues my inbox and in-trade daily. Desperate to avoid wasting time and money, neither of which I could afford to lose. Desperate to measure effectiveness instead of repeatedly flinging mud against the wall in the hope that some of it would stick. Above all, I was desperate to leave the people I approached with a lasting, positive impression of me and my business. Because in the words of Warren Buffett, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And if you think about that, you'll do things differently. Well, thankfully, perseverance and a healthy dose of good fortune would lead me to find a solution. And it's not just a solution, it absolutely knocks the socks off of any other form of business development I've ever come across. Not only are my outbound headaches a thing of the past, but it's led me on a journey to help other people overcome similar challenges. I've written a best-selling book, I've delivered workshops to global brands, and I've taught more than 17,000 students from over 150 countries through my online course. And today, I'm going to be introducing some of the fundamentals of that approach to you all in the hope that some of you might start to unlock a puzzle that took me more than a quarter of my life to solve. So, what is personalized video marketing? Well, in a nutshell, it is a way to approach potential customers and people who you are looking to build a professional relationship with without sacrificing your time, your money, or your integrity. And to be totally clear, it is not a single video that you record and send out to a bunch of different people. That is content marketing, and your prospects would have seen it done 100 times before. What we are talking about is a bespoke piece of communication, specifically created for an audience of one. Now, it is a brilliant option for anyone who is responsible for business development within a company, but it is especially suited to small businesses, where the person responsible for business development is not the natural salesperson. Now, in those circumstances, people can often find that selling, and sometimes particularly outbound selling, can be a challenging and sometimes downright miserable experience. Now, while anyone can get started with personalized video marketing, it's far more difficult to execute it effectively. And that's why I developed the Wonder Leads process to help people learn from the mistakes and successes that I had to learn the hard way. Now, the process follows 6 key steps. They are connecting, storytelling, filming, publishing, messaging, and measuring. And we're going to be touching on each one in a little more detail now. Now, the first part of the process is connecting. You might be wondering why we're talking about connecting as a first step. Surely you can just create a video and send it on an email. Well, one thing you would have undoubtedly already twigged is that creating a personalized video for someone requires a certain investment of time. Now, the success or failure of the approach depends on the percentage of people that you can get to watch the video, not the number that you create. Now, while you could record a video and send it on an email to a cold prospect, GDPR permitting, of course, it would not be the best strategy, not by a long shot. Now, if we look here at the benchmark stats provided by MailChimp, you can see that the average open rate for emails across all industries is less than 22%. And the average click-through rate is less than 3%. Now, these figures include the ones where they've actively chosen to hear from the sender. Now, in the case of cold approaches, you can guarantee that those statistics will be much lower than that. Now, because native embedding of videos into emails is really badly supported. Basically, it does not work on Android, any Android device. it doesn't work in Outlook, and it doesn't work in Gmail. The key stat that we need to have a look at here is the click-through rate. Now, clearly, nobody in their right mind can afford to waste time creating 97 out of 100 videos that will never be seen. So that's why the recommended vehicle for the delivery of video messages is messaging through social networks, and in particular, through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an ideal platform because not only is it the biggest professional network in the world, but it's also a hotbed of B2B activity. The reason we talk about connecting as a first step is because personalized video messages are most effective when they are sent to first-degree connections. In other words, people who have already granted you permission to be part of their world. And it's for those reasons that using LinkedIn's in-mail feature is an equally bad idea. Now, if we have a look at the in-mail stats here as well, provided by LinkedIn themselves, now you can see that the average open rate for in-mails is much higher. It's nearly triple that of cold email marketing. But the all-important click-through rate is still miserably low at just 3.6%. And the reason is that just like email, in-mails do not have permission. So most people associate them with spam and either give them a cursory glance or they ignore them completely. If you want to increase the chances of your personalized messages being seen, then the number one thing to remember is to get permission from the person that you are sending it to by connecting with them first. If, it's a big if they accept, then you have been given an initial green light that will vastly increase your chances of any subsequent messages being read. So when it comes to selecting who it is that you want to target with these approaches, then the number one thing to remember is focus. To avoid wasting your own time, you need to be really laser focused on exactly who you need to be speaking to. Now, the tighter your niche, the more relevant your offering, then the more likely people are to listen to what you have to say. So you have to find ways to encourage them to connect with you, whether that's through shared connections, shared interests, insight into their activity, an interesting profile or relevant hook. You've got to find ways to get them interested enough in what you have to say to let you be part of their world. Now, the second part of the process is storytelling. And it's all very well grabbing someone's attention with a personalized video, and you probably will. But what happens next? Now, storytelling is about crafting a compelling narrative around your business and formulating a journey that fits neatly into the B2B buying process. Because the reality is that for most businesses in B2B, buying windows are really far apart. I mean, we're talking years, not weeks. In fact, recent data by the Ehrenberg Bass Institute found that up to 95% of B2B buyers are not in the market for goods and services at any one time. Now, the core purpose of a personalized video message is, of course, to generate sales opportunities, but it is not to generate them immediately. The core purpose is to get yourself on the radar so that when those buying windows do open up, you are in pole position to have a great conversation. So with that in mind, the script that you write for your video messages should adhere to 3 key principles. And the first is brevity. Now, people are busy and you don't want to take up any more of their time than necessary. Attention spans are notoriously short. The second is value. Now, you need to be able to explain in a very short amount of time exactly why what you are contacting people about will benefit the person that you are contacting. Because it's only when value is clearly visible that people are compelled to make a purchase. And the final one is empathy. And empathy is fundamental because it's only when you are able to walk in somebody else's shoes that the ability to walk in somebody else's shoes is the cornerstone of all successful outbound marketing. And to explain why, the purpose of marketing is to build a meaningful relationship between someone providing goods and services and the people most likely to benefit. And meaningful relationships are built between the empathy between those two parties. In other words, when I feel appreciated by you and you feel appreciated by me. Now, in the case of outbound marketing, sales marketing, the onus is entirely on the seller to create that initial empathy because they are the ones making the first approach. But sadly, most outbound marketing displays precisely zero empathy. It's just a deluge of self-promotion to as many people who would listen. And the reality is there's just too much marketing noise out there for that approach to work. And so what is the effect? Well, people simply tune out. The more that you can demonstrate empathy through increased personalization and dropping the corporate persona, then the more space you create for them to return the favor. And that's why empathy is so powerful. Part 3 of the process is the one that most people are intimidated by when they hear about this stage. And that is filming your videos. Now, if you are new to being on camera or being on video at all, then don't worry, because I was as well when I first started out. It takes a little bit of time, but you soon get into the swing of things. To give you an example, it took me the best part of a day to record my first 5 videos. But then within a couple of weeks, I had recorded and sent out 15 in less than 2 hours. It really does get much quicker with practice. Half the battle is good preparation and knowing what you are trying to achieve in the production of your video. Because if you are savvy, the aim of your video shouldn't be just to start any old sales conversation. Your aim should be to start a profitable sales conversation. Now, the temptation for many might be to just film something casually on their mobile phone. And yes, any personalized video message will be a vast improvement on the usual generic rubbish that most people have to put up with on a daily basis. But I would advise against it. And that's because conversations always gravitate to the perceived level of value. Now, if you are able to set the perception of value high by executing your videos well, then the expectation of the person receiving it is that they are dealing with a high value business. And then subsequent conversations will flow in that direction. Now, if you do the same, but you cut corners and you set a low perception in the way that your video is presented, then the conversations in value will reduce accordingly. Now, to explain why that happens, just think about how all of us constantly filter our buying decisions. And we can all tell instantly whether a car, a toaster, a restaurant, or a brochure looks more expensive than the one sat next to it, regardless of whether you've had any design training. And the reason is that we are bombarded with these types of visual messages all day, every day. Now, profitability lies in the space between how much something costs to produce, deliver, and how much somebody is willing to pay for it. You may not know exactly what makes a video look higher quality than one sat next to you, but you will know one when you see one, and so will the person on the receiving end. So if you set your perception of value high by going for a quality execution, you are laying the foundation for profitable conversations down the line. Now, That does not mean, I know we're in Yorkshire and there'll be a few wallets trembling already at the thought of that, that you do not need to go mad. Now, in fact, the best advice that I can offer to anybody when it comes to filming videos is to experiment. Now, I haven't got a lot of time to go into them here, but there are loads of ways to achieve a professional look to a video without spending much money. You can use a basic DSLR camera, which you can pick up really cheap, and you can even use your iPhone or any smartphone as a pro webcam with the right bit of software. And any video can be vastly improved by choosing the right background and some good lighting. It simply requires a bit of experimentation and effort up front. Now, trying to achieve a professional look to your videos does not mean that you have to be professional in front of the camera. In fact, the ideal style that you're trying to aim for is relaxed and conversational. You don't want your videos to feel like a sales pitch. Because after all, people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So your aim should be to build a rapport. And the best way I find to do that is to talk to the camera the way that you would talk to a good friend. Now, step 4 of the process is publishing. And the first part of that, after you've filmed your videos, is a little bit of light touch editing. Now, video editing sounds complicated, but really it's a doddle, and I mean a doddle. I do all of mine in iMovie, and all you need to do is trim the footage, remove a bit of background noise, which is literally a one-click operation in most software packages, and then hit export. It takes 1 to 2 minutes max per video once you know what settings to apply. Now, once it's ready, your video is there and you've got your video file ready to send, rather than just attaching it to a LinkedIn message, which is possible, but I advise against because it's almost impossible to measure, our recommended vehicle for delivery is to attach your video to one of these, its own personalized landing page. Now, there are 3 main benefits for doing this. First is that you can create an even more personalized journey, so an even more bespoke piece of communication feels more special to that person. Second is that you can influence the journey that you want to take them on by adding relevant calls to action, like the button just below the video you can see here. And then finally, and critically, is that you can monitor engagement, so you can tell which of your videos being viewed and played. Now, we recommend 2 primary ways of creating these landing pages. Now, the first is to add new functionality onto your existing company website. And this is precisely what I did when we first started out. Now, we have a WordPress website and we just added a new section that allowed me to create individually personalized pages for each person. I then had to take a video, upload it to Vimeo, and then introduce it onto the page, and then I monitor the engagement using our Google Analytics on the website. Now, the downside to that approach is that it obviously requires some help from your web developer up front, so there's usually going to be a bit of an investment in costs up front, and it can be a bit of a challenge to generally stay on top of all the systems and processes that you need to oversee the process. So if you're looking for a simpler solution, then you could also check out our SOCIALASER software, which is a bespoke delivery and analytics platform specifically created for the delivery of personalized video messages through LinkedIn. It means you can be up and running in minutes, and you will instantly be alerted when someone views your landing page, plays your video, or clicks a call to action. You can test it out for free by scanning the QR code in the top right corner, or by visiting wonderleads.com/socialaser. Now, just as an aside, because people do always ask, is yes, it is possible to upload your video and set it privately on YouTube, but for me, it's a bad choice. That's because it's impersonal and it's difficult to measure, because you can't exclude your own visits from those of the people that you're sending from the analytics. Above all, far too distracting. You want people to be 100% focused on the words coming out of your mouth and not the latest trending cat videos. It would be much better to send the message directly through LinkedIn, attach it directly to a LinkedIn message, because at least then it doesn't come with all the distractions. Now, filming the video and creating the landing pages is the lion's share of the work when it comes to this approach. But it will all be for nothing if you can't get people to view your videos. And that's why how you introduce your videos is almost as important as the content on the video itself. And this is another situation where increased personalization will pay huge dividends. Now, there are two primary psychological levers that we can pull on besides the content of the message itself to help influence people to make them click through to view their video. And the first is the URL structure. Now, it is highly advisable that you use personalized URLs. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's just take a look at two common video links. Now, we will have all seen video links like this in the past. No doubt we'll have clicked on many of them in our time. But these types of links suffer from one major flaw. And that is that you have absolutely no idea what lurks on the other side of the click. Now, fear of the unknown will make a lot of people reluctant to click on a link like this, especially when it comes from a relatively unknown source, as we would be in this situation. Now, instead, it's much better to use a personalized link, where the destination, the end destination, is far more descriptive and relevant to the person that you're contacting. Now, this can be done using your existing company website. So you see here where we've got hello and the person's name has been introduced into the URL structure to create a far more compelling and descriptive destination. And then in SOCIALASER, this can be taken on to a next level by integrating customized domains into the equation as well. So, for example, all of my messages are sent through my from-dave.to domain name, followed by the person's name that I'm sending out to, which makes every link that I share with people look like a personalized little note. And that's exactly what they are. Evidence from Bitly says that using personalized or branded links, as they call them, like this, can increase click-through rates by 34% compared to obscure links. So this is a really important lever that you can pull on to increase the chances of your videos and messages being viewed. Now, the second lever that we can pull on is the link preview. Now, when you attach a link, when you put a link into a LinkedIn message, it generates a preview using data embedded on the linked page, and then it appends it to the end of your message. Evidence from Forbes Insights shows that 59% of company decision makers would rather watch a video than read a blog post or an article. So visibly demonstrating that you are linking to video content is a really good way to be able to encourage people to click through and view. And you will notice that there's a couple of details about this thumbnail image that we've generated. The first, it's overlaid with the person's name and their company, which again is to create a feeling that this is not just a generic video, this has been specifically created for them. And the second, you'll notice is labeled waving. And whether you're a fan of a zoom wave or not, waving serves a really important purpose because it's what social scientists would call a quotable or an emblem gesture, which means it doesn't require speech to be understood. So starting and ending your video with a wave and demonstrating a wave in your thumbnail is a really good way of building rapport by saying you want to say hello through a static image. So that's a really good way of encouraging people to view your videos. Now, when you've sent your video, your first message out, you will not get a response from people first time. Not from everyone, I think. And after you've invested time in creating these video messages, you owe it to yourself to give it another shot as to kickstarting that all-important conversation. But how you go about following up is really important. And it's my contention that the vast majority of salespeople do it completely wrong. Because what most people really appreciate is space. Yet what most salespeople do is take it all away. Now, if we think back to the Ehrenberg VAST study that I referred to earlier, in essence, they are operating on a 5-100 model. 2 to 3 days after they send their initial message, they send a follow-up. And then they send another one a couple of days after that. And then another one a few days after that. And then another one a few days after that. Now, each message pushes for action because they are solely focused on finding the needles in the haystack who might have an immediate pressing need. Now, I don't really like to point fingers, but there is a post online by a chap called Steph Effney, who is the CEO of Close.com, very big sales website. And in it, he advocates following up with someone until you get a response. And he cites an example where he followed up with someone 48 times before he got a meeting. And on extremely rare occasions, that kind of relentless persistence may work. But the vast majority of the time, it has precisely the opposite effect as intended. It puts people off ever wanting to do work with that business and that person again. And it torpedoes any opportunity to build a more meaningful relationship down the line. That's because that kind of relentless persistence ignores the reality that most people are not ready to buy. And then they simply associate irrelevant, unrealistic messages as spam. Now, if you turn that model entirely on its head and instead start focusing on the 95% of people who aren't ready to buy yet, but might do one day, and strange events can start to unfurl. A lot of people start to react favorably because they recognize someone who understands the reality of their world, who seems like a positive person to do business with, and they start to listen. And when you have their attention, then remarkable things can start to happen, as we'll see shortly. That is why I only advocate following up on your initial message once. If you don't get a response after that, then you can confidently assume that they are either not interested or responding is not a priority to them now. And there are a million reasons why people will not choose to reply. After that, you can confidently move on to the next person and stop wasting your time following up with people who are not interested. Because the great thing is that there are always more fish in the sea when you follow a path that rewards quality over quantity. The final part of the process should be the final part of any good sales and marketing activity, and that is measuring the results of your efforts. And if you get it right, the results can be pretty remarkable. Now, the best measure that I can give you of what can be achieved is by analysis of my earliest videos, when I was no more adept at personalized video messaging than you would be if you started out right now. Now, these were all sent to businesses, senior decision makers in the UK manufacturing sector. Now, from 120 videos I sent over a 3-month period, we ended up with a view rate of 55%, an overall response rate of 44%, and a lead generation rate of 10.8%. Now that means that over 80% of viewed videos generate a response. 1 in 5 of those turn into a lead. That was proved to be 18 times more effective than cold calling. Now, how can we make that comparison? Well, thanks to a chap called Gordon Treadgold. Now, Gordon is a leadership expert, speaker, contributor to Huffington Post, Forbes, Inc., and a generally respected businessman. Now, a few years ago, Gordon signed up for an experiment to carry out a staggering 2,000 B2B sales calls in just 20 days. Now, Gordon was not a natural salesperson, and he wanted to push himself out of his comfort zone to see what could be achieved. Now, he posted an article with his findings on entrepreneur.com, and he found that it took on average 17 calls to connect with the right person. Now, that equates to a response rate of just 6%. Now, of those successful calls, only 1 in 10 of those resulted in a meeting, which means that his lead generation rate was just 0.6%. That's 18 times less than the approach through personalized video. Now, it wasn't just the level of response that really amazed me, it was the nature of the responses that I was getting back that really blew me away. Now, people that I'd never previously spoken to or had any contact with were sending me messages like, Dave, that is the best approach ever through LinkedIn. And Dave, I absolutely love this. If I could find the applause emoji, I'd send it. And these weren't just your typical average employees either. Nearly all were CEOs, MDs, business owners, and board-level executives of multi-million-pound companies. Typically, some of the most difficult people to get any kind of response from, let alone one so positive. Now, how can that be happening? Well, marketing works when you concentrate a relatively high degree of effort on a relatively small target audience. But sadly, most outbound marketing focuses on the opposite. People look at marketing as a numbers game, and they try to reach as many people as possible with the least amount of effort. Now, that approach is simply unsustainable in a world that is completely saturated with marketing noise. I think the reality is that B2B marketing, or mass marketing on a B2B level, is a massive sinkhole of time, money, and effort masquerading as activity. And it's easy to get seduced into the trap of thinking that activity equals progress, when the reality is that activity is either falling on deaf ears or being ignored altogether. Now, personalized video marketing is a big effort, small audience approach, and that's where the power lies. Because after all, when all is said and done, it doesn't matter what job you hold, it doesn't matter where you live, or what resources you have behind you. None of us have more than 24 hours in a day. If you can demonstrate to someone else that you care enough about them to invest your most precious resource, time, then people will listen.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys, and thank you so much for your attention there. And you will know, before we get into some Q&As, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that might pop up. Otherwise, you can all escape early for a coffee. You'll notice that we've covered a lot of ground today, and we've really only scratched the surface of many topics. So if you want to find out more about personalized video marketing, then the best place I could recommend to start is with this. Is my book, Wonder Leeds, which is available from all good retailers in print, ebook, and audiobook versions. It's an international bestseller and a recipient of an Axiom Silver Medal, which puts it alongside some pretty cool past winners like Seth Godin and Peter Drucker and Tony Robbins. Now, if you want to find out more, you can see a full list of stockists by scanning the QR code in the top corner or by visiting wonderleeds.com/book, where you'll also find details on a range of courses that we offer. Now, if after all this, I've piqued your interest and you're wondering, well, what does a personalized video message look like? Well, I have uploaded one to SOCIALASER for you all to have a look at. And this one that I've uploaded was one that generated one of my favorite ever responses. So to visit, all you need to do is you go to the URL on the screen, from-dave.2/go-digital-live, or you can scan the QR code again in the top corner and take you straight there. And has everybody got that? Yeah. And finally, if you've enjoyed the talk today, I would absolutely love to stay in touch. You can connect with me. The best place to do that is to connect with me on LinkedIn, which you can do by scanning the QR code. And if you're interested in following my posts, I tend to post all things positive, sales and marketing most days. You can follow my hashtag Dave if you want to do. Now, thank you all so much for your attention. And I'd be happy to take any questions that might have popped up. Yes.
What if your audience is done LinkedIn? So we're a recruiter in social care. So all our audience will be candidates.
Yeah.
Who apply or will be active looking for us, but they wouldn't necessarily be on LinkedIn. How would we use a tool to approach them?
Well, how do you generally contact them at the moment?
By email, like we do.
Yeah, so these cold approaches that you make, do you use them?
Sometimes they've applied it to us and then we're trying to get hold of them to social application.
Yeah, so if you are going to go the email route, then never send it as a first approach. Never send your email, never create a video and then send it off, because the most likely scenario is that people are just going to get inside and end up in a spam folder and people are going to delete it straight away. So if you get a response, it kind of works on a similar permission. At least you've kickstarted that initial conversation. You've got that small, I wouldn't say it's a green light, but I would say it's a flashing amber to kind of be able to know that your subsequent messages are more likely to be read. So that would be my recommendation.
Dave, you mentioned when you sent out the first video message,
yes,
you had loads of responses from people, CEOs and people like that.
Yeah.
Was that because they were intrigued by the idea you managed to send them a video through LinkedIn, or was it genuinely the interest that you were trying to provoke from your video?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's your name?
Abdul.
Abdul. Yeah, that's a great question, Abdul. Now, I think the reality is that it's both. It's both. Now, you will get people's attention by the novelty of a message. And like I say, it requires time and effort that most people are not willing to put into their outbound marketing, because they'd rather have the comfort blanket of doing a mass mail out where they can see that it's gone out to thousands of people, instead of really thinking hard about who they want to contact and the people most likely to benefit. So I think that's definitely grabs their attention. But this is why the storytelling part of the process is really important, because it's there that you have to have the substance. It's very easy to just spout off empty words to people and just get their attention. But you want them to take action, or you want them to take notice, and you want them to realize that your business actually has value that you can offer them. And the whole process of going through this, and it isn't for everyone, it won't be for everyone, this type of approach, but people who are willing to do the thinking, to go, I am so laser focused on exactly these people. And I know what we've created at this company will really benefit those people. Then you know your message is more likely to resonate when it gets through. So it is very much the two elements working in tandem. You can't have the video without the value.
How do you set up personalised URLs?
How can you set up personalised URLs? So in our SOCIALASER software, it does it automatically. So that's kind of one of the benefits. It takes a lot of the hassle away out of doing it. You can customise and shorten them as you see fit. If you are using the website approach, then you need help from your web developer to set up the structure right. So that will be down to your web developer to say, you need to tell them, I want to have a URL that looks like this. And they will do all the technical work for you. So it's all perfectly achievable. If you want to just test the water, you can go to SOCIALASER and you can have 10 free videos to send out and you can see how you get on. You know, and you can just do that. So if you want to test the water before you want to move it over to a web solution, then that's an option. It's the option.
Sorry.
Oh, I'll go to the. Can I go to the?
From Apple's question, I'm just still a little bit unclear. So those you said about 320 videos or something. You said.
Yeah.
But were there contacts you already had on LinkedIn that you already
No.
linked with?
No. So this was fresh. It was basically following the 6 steps. So it was targeting, and in our case, we needed to speak to MDs and CEOs because when I was approaching people, I was approaching them from the as my branding agency, BML. So the strategic branding work that we do, we need to deal with the senior decision maker within the business. Now they're really hard to get hold of, and that's why I struggled for like so many years to kind of even just get on the radar of these people because we knew exactly which businesses we could benefit, but we could never find a way to start the conversation with them, kind of interject. It was always them who would come to us with a brief when the time was right. If they didn't see us, we wouldn't get a brief. so it was really finding those people is not difficult on LinkedIn. Finding the people that you need to speak to. You can use the search. They come up in your LinkedIn feed. If you've got Sales Navigator, you can do searches. You know, there's tools out there that are available that make finding the right people easy. Connecting with them is more difficult. So that's where you need to show empathy and you don't sell in your first message. You don't really want to be selling. In your video message, you just want to be introducing how you can benefit them at some point, if it ever comes up. You know, so it's really about that. And our examples were connecting with people that we've never previously spoken to, following up with a video. And so, yeah, they were as cold approaches as we could make.
So, I'm an IT person. People do embed suspicious URL with the thumbnails.
Yes.
So, is there any way to, because I train my staff not to even click any thumbnails.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think
how to be sure that it is appropriate URL with the thumbnail?
Yeah, and I think again, in SOCIALASER, things like the thumbnail are auto-generated for you. So again, that's kind of like those little psychological levers, the URL and the thumbnail are automatically done. And they really do go a long way to encouraging people to know that it's not just a generic spam email. But again, I kind of like go back a step and say that you're almost laying the foundations for trust in how you approach that first connection request. Now, most people just fire off a LinkedIn connection request totally blind. Don't they? They just send it off. And like, as if you go into a cafe and then see someone that you want to go and speak to, and you just go and sit down next to them and you don't say a word. You know, like, what kind of first impressions does that make to people? So, the biggest tip I can say there is like that first connection message, or whether you've commented on one of their posts to build a bit of a rapport, is you're setting the tone for everything else that's going to follow from there. So
in answer to your response about being wary, well, it's you're trying to get that permission. You don't send them out as cold emails where people are very reluctant to click on things. You don't send them out in emails because people are very reluctant to click on things. You do it in a much more considered way, and that's why it works. That's why it works. Is everybody okay? Well, I think our time is up. So anyway, thank you all so much for listening. We'll go and have a week.